Good morning. This is B.M. Shahidul Islam, Assistant Professor of English, Govt.suhrawardisollege, Pirojpur. Dear students of intermediate class, welcome to the class on right form of verbs. You know that this is our third class on right form of verbs, and today I am going to discuss the use of past form of verbs. You know that past tense verbs indicate some events, actions, states or beings that have already happened. Or in other words, we can say that past tense verbs refer to some events and actions or activities or beings in the past. Within past tense, we have four tenses, four types of forms, and I have written all those on in the table. That is, past tense is of four types. Number one, simple past tense. Number two, past progressive tense. Number three, past perfect tense, and number four, past perfect progressive tense. I have given four examples separately here. If you notice, simple past tense, the example is I looked at the sea. I looked at the sea. Looked at, and this indicates something simply that happened in the past. And I was then, past progressive tense, I was looking at the sea. Was looking, and here we can also use where when we use plural forms here, or we use the second person you here. So I was looking. So past progressive form indicates some ongoing action that was going on in the past for a short time. This is called past progressive tense, and another name of this tense is past continuous tense. Then the third form is I had looked at the sea, the past perfect tense. I had looked. So we have to use had before the past participle form of verbs in the case of past perfect tense. I had looked at the sea. And these verbs indicate some completed action. And then past perfect progressive tense. Past perfect progressive tense. I had been looking. So in past perfect progressive tense, we have to use had been and then the present participle form of verbs. And this type of verbs indicate some ongoing action in the past which would be completed at some definite point of time. So what's the difference between this past progressive tense and past perfect progressive tense? Here the duration of time is shorter than this one. That is, here these verbs captures larger time duration than this tense. So these are simply the four forms of past tense. But my basic target of today's discussion is that I want to discuss where to use the past form of verbs. Dear students, that there are many rules in basic grammar, and sometimes it covers a large number of chapters just to use just to discuss the use of past form verbs. But I have tried to summarize all those rules, and I will give you two successive classes on the use of past form of verbs, because this is somewhat, no doubt, a big discussion. Anyway, so in our first class on the past use of past form of verbs, we will discuss the four major rules of use of past form of verbs. The four major rules of using past form of verbs. Let's start one after another. Some of the major rules which help us in using the past form of verbs. Number 1, word phrase indicating any past events or actions plus past form of verbs. For example, ago, long ago, since, long since, back, later, once upon a time, in the past, in those days, the other day, or the other night, etc. So, what's the rule? When you get any word or phrase in any sentence which express any past event or action in any way, then you are to use the past form of verbs. For example, if there are this type of words or phrases in any sentence, ago, long ago, since, long since, back, later, once upon a time, in the past, in those days, the other day or the other night, etc. There are many other words and phrases like this which indicate past event or past actions. So, if anyway in any sentence you get this type of words or phrases which indicate the past events or actions, then you are to use the past form of verbs. Let me give an example. For example, example number 1, we met beside the lake the other night. This should be separate, that is the other night. We met beside the lake the other night. Here is the other night in the sentence which indicates the past event. So, met, that is the past form of verbs. Here I have used, that is met. You know, MWT, meet, and the past form is met. As here is the other night is a phrase which indicates the past event. So, we met beside the lake the other night. The other night, that is, students, do you know what is the other night? The other night means such as 1, 2 or just a few evenings ago is the other night. Then give me another example. Let me give another example. Just in those days, people were nomads. People were nomads in those days, that is previously, in the past. People were, here were, that is the past form is are, because here we are getting a phrase which is indicating some past event. In those days, that is in the past, people were, we should use the past form of verbs. Nomads, Nomads, most probably you know the meaning of the words nomad. Nomads, the plural form is nomad. Nomad means vagabond. That is people in the past. Some people they didn't have permanent abode, and they used to travel from place to place looking for new pasture for their livestock. Vagabond, just the vagabonds are the nomads who didn't have permanent abode, and they used to travel from place to place looking for new pasture for their livestock. This is the rule. I am not going to lengthen these rules because I have still 3 other rules which I would like to complete today. So, this is the first rule. Then time, date or time, date or time, indicating any past events or actions plus past form of verbs. If you get any date or any time which have already passed, for example, if you get any year, any past year, or any past date, for example, in March of this year, or in 1616, or in 1919, if you get this type of past date or past time in any sentence, you are to use the past form of verbs. For example, example number 1, William Shakespeare was born in 1564 and died in 1616. William Shakespeare was born in 1564 and died in 1616. Or let me give another example. In 30s, T-H-I-R-T-I-E-S, in 30s, frustration and discontent engulf life. This is another example. So, I have given 2 examples here, and in both the examples we are getting here in first sentence we are getting 1564, that is the first date, 1564 and 1616. Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, you know that one of the prominent dramatists in the world, one of the world famous, and some critics say that he is the of all times greatest dramatist in the world. So, Shakespeare was born in 1564, that is the past date, past year, and then he died in 1616. And we have said that there is a rule that if you get any year, any time, any date which have already passed, then you have to use the past form of verbs. So, we have used here the past form of verbs, that is was born and then here died, the past form of verbs. And in second sentence, in 30s, that indicates past form, that is in 30s means in 1930 and afterwards, that is between 1930 and 1939. This 10 years is called 30s. So, in 30s, frustration and discontent engulfed life. Here, engulfed, that is filled with. We mean in 30s, that is in 1930 between 1930 to 1939, frustration, that is hopelessness and dissatisfaction filled life. So, here we have used the first form of verbs because here this in 30s, this phrase indicates something that happened in the past. And then rule number 3, last plus time. Last plus time, indicating any past events or actions plus a past form of verbs. That is, if you use last before any time, then you have to use past form of verbs. That is, we say that last month, last week. For example, give me some examples. For example, last evening. For example, last evening. Here, last plus time. That is last evening. Then last week. Then last plus week time. Then last month, last plus, or last fortnight. Fortnight, that is half of the month, 15 days. Last fortnight, or last century, or last millennium. Last millennium. So, if you use last before time, then you have to use the past form of verbs. Last evening, last week. In every case, we are using last before some time, or some, or should I say, adverbial. Last evening, last week, last month, last fortnight, last century, last millennium. Let me give some examples, etc. Let me give some examples. Number one, I will give two examples only. Number one, last millennium, people saw two old horse. In last millennium, people saw, here P should not be capitalized. In last millennium, people saw two old horse. People saw two old horse in last millennium. As it is last millennium, last plus time, so people saw, here saw, the past form of see. So when there is last before any time, then we have to use the past form of verbs. Then number two example, Emily visited the mall last night or last evening. Emily visited the mall last night. So, or I had a, number three, I had a terrible dream last night. So, last plus time, last night. We have to use the past form of verbs when there is last plus time, last night, and then in last millennium, etc. So, here Emily visited. Here we have used the past form of verbs because there is last plus time. I had a dream. I had a terrible dream last night. I had a terrible dream last night. Had, the past form of have, because there is last plus time. So, this is rule number 3, and finally rule number 4, and which is the last rule to be discussed for today. And rule number 4 is very interesting and very useful to express the powerful realizations and powerful ideas. So, you should be careful to understand this rule. It is time, very popular rule. It is high time, or it is time, or conjunction, it's high time, or it's time in conjunction for, or fancy. Fancy means imagine. Fancy plus subject plus past form of verbs. That is, it is time, it is high time, it is time, or in conjunction, it's time, it's high time, or fancy. Then subject, then past form of verbs. That is, if any sentence, in any sentence you get that there is any of these words and phrases, that is, if there is any it's high time or it's time, and then there is subject, then after that subject we have to use the past form of verbs. It's time, or it's high time, or fancy, and there are some other words of course. Anyway, we have to use, then if comes the subject, then after that subject we have to use the past form of verbs. For example, let me give some examples here. Example number 1. Example number 1. It's high time you went to bed. It's high time you went to bed. Number 2 example. It's time you bought a new pair of jeans. Or okay, let's stop here giving the examples. Anyway, let's try to understand these 2 examples. It's high time you went to bed. It's high time, then subject, as we have mentioned that it's time or it's high time plus subject. Here it's time, and then this is the subject, this is subject, and we are talking about this verb, the past form of verbs. That is, when there is it's time or it's high time, then comes the subject, then we have to use the past form of verbs. So we have used here when, not go or gone or anything else. It's high time you went to bed, and in the same way it's time, the same rule, plus subject, you bought, the past form of buy, bought. So here we have used the past form of bought, because we have said that if there is high time or fancy, and then comes the subject, then after that subject we have to use the past form of verb. So we have, as per the rule, we have used bought, the past form of buy here. And then we can give some other examples. For example, example number 3. It's high time to go to college. It's high time to go to college. Number 4. It's time to go to bed. Here another rule arrives, that is, I have used here to go, that is, here it's high time and it's time, and no subject here, no subject, as we got here this you or you, but here is no subject. It's high time, and then the main verb arrives. So what happens now? Now this verb should not be the past form. but this should be in infinitive form, that is 2 plus the base form of main verb. So what's the rule here? If after high time, its high time, or its time or fancy, after all these words and phrases, if we get the subject, then if there is the use of main verb, then we have to use the past form of main verbs. But if there is no subject after these phrases and words, but if after these words and phrases, if the main verb directly comes, then we have to use the infinitive form. I'm sorry, the 2 plus main the base form of main verbs. This is called infinitive. So it's high time, no subject is there. Actually it should be like, for you, within bracket, it's high time to go to college. So if there is subject, then the verb should be in past form, but if there is no subject, then the verb should be in infinitive form, that is 2 plus base form of main verb. In the same way, it's time to go to bed. Here, to go to bed, as there is no subject here, but the main verb go has directly arrived here after its time. So we have used the infinitive form. So we are actually getting 2 rules here. Anyway, dear students, now there is a minute difference between its high time and its time. Its high time, you went to bed. It means that its high time expresses something that should be done, and we are already a bit late. That is, its high time, you went to bed, as here its high time, you went to bed, it means you are already late. So please don't waste a bit of time, because you are already late. So you go to bed just without any delay, because you are already late when there is its high time. So if its high time expresses something that should be done right at the moment, because we are already a bit late. But if there is its time, it expresses something to be done, but we are still in time, that is, we are not late. So the difference between its high time and its time is the duration of time. That is, in the case of its high time, it expresses something that should be done, and we are still a bit late. But in the case of its time, it also expresses something that should be done right at the moment, but we are still in time. So this is the basic difference between its time and its high time. So dear students, ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers, I am going to stop here my discussion on the right form of verbs and the use of past form of verbs, and we hope that we will be able to continue our discussion on this topic in next class. Thank you very much.